It started in a waiting room, an ordinary place with beige walls, flickering fluorescent lights, and the faint smell of antiseptic. I was there for a routine appointment, flipping through a dog-eared magazine when she sat down across from me. Her name, I'd later learn, was Clara. She wore a gray coat, her dark hair pulled back tightly, and her eyes, sharp, unblinking, fixed on me like I was the only person in the room. "You've been here before," she said, her voice low, almost swallowed by the hum of the lights. I glanced up, confused. "Sorry, what?" "You've been here," she repeated, leaning forward slightly. "Don't you remember?" I forced a smile, assuming she'd mistaken me for someone else. "First time today. Just a checkup." Her lips twitched, not quite a smile. "That's what you always say." The receptionist called my name before I could respond. "James Carter?" And I stood, relieved to escape the odd encounter. But as I walked to the desk, I noticed Clara watching me, her head tilted at an angle that seemed just off, like a mannequin adjusting to a new pose. The appointment was quick: blood pressure, pulse, a few questions. The doctor, a tired-looking man with a clipboard, scribbled notes, and sent me back to the waiting room to schedule a follow-up. When I returned, Clara was still there, in the same seat, her coat folded neatly over her lap now. The room felt emptier, though I couldn't say why. "You're back," she said as I sat down, a row away this time. "Yeah, just setting up the next visit." I kept my tone light, avoiding her gaze. She nodded slowly. "You always come back, every time." I frowned, irritation creeping in. "Look, I don't know you. What are you talking about?" Clara didn't blink. "This place, it keeps you. You walk out that door, but you're always here again. Same chair, same magazine, same me." A chill prickled my neck, but I shook it off. She was unhinged, that was all. I stood, heading for the exit, when she called after me, her voice cutting through the stillness. "Check your watch." I paused, glancing at my wrist. 2:37 p.m. I'd arrived at 2 p.m., and the appointment had taken maybe 15 minutes. The math checked out. I pushed through the glass doors into the parking lot, the cold air sharp against my skin, and drove home, determined to forget her. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words gnawed at me. "You always come back." I told myself it was nonsense, but when I woke the next morning, my keys were in my hand, and I was driving back to the clinic without fully understanding why. A nagging feeling pulled me there, like a thread tugging at my mind. The waiting room was the same: beige walls, flickering lights, the antiseptic tang. Clara sat across from me, her coat on this time, her eyes locked onto mine. "Welcome back," she said, her voice softer now, almost pitying. I gripped the armrests, my pulse quickening. "I don't need to be here. Why am I here?" "You tell me," she said, tilting her head again, that same unnatural angle. "What did they say yesterday?" "Routine stuff. Blood pressure, heart rate." I stopped, the memory blurred. Had the doctor said anything else? I couldn't recall his face, just the clipboard, the pen moving. Clara leaned closer, her breath faintly audible. They're watching you, James, testing you, and you keep failing. Who's they? My voice rose, drawing a glance from an old man in the corner, though he quickly looked away. She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed to a clock on the wall. 2:37 p.m. I checked my watch. 2:37. Exactly. My stomach dropped. I'd left home at 9 a.m., a 20-minute drive. Time didn't bend like that. This isn't real, I muttered, standing abruptly. You're messing with me. Clara's lips parted, revealing teeth too even, too white. Walk out again. See where it gets you. I stormed through the doors, heart hammering, and drove home, the road stretching longer than it should have, the sky a flat, unchanging gray. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat there, hands shaking, until that same pull dragged me back the next day. The waiting room greeted me once more. Clara was there, her coat off now, her hands folded in her lap. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder, a sound that burrowed into my skull. Why does this keep happening? I demanded, my voice cracking. She stood, stepping closer, too close. Because you're not done. They're not done. Look around. Really look. I did. The old man was gone. The receptionist's desk was empty, papers scattered across it like they'd been abandoned mid-task. The magazine in my hand was blank, pages pristine and wordless. My breath hitched. What is this place? I whispered. Clara's face was inches from mine now, her eyes wide and hollow. It's where you wait, where you've always waited. You died, James, in that chair, months ago. Heart attack, they said, but you didn't leave. You can't. I recoiled, slamming into the wall. No, I'm alive. I drove here. You drove nowhere, she cut in, her voice sharp now. You're a loop, a signal stuck in static, and I'm here to watch you unravel. The lights flickered violently, and the room tilted. My watch still read 2:37. The air thickened, pressing against my chest, and Clara's face began to warp, her mouth stretching, her eyes sinking into black pits. She grabbed my wrist, her touch ice cold, and whispered, "Say it. Say you're done." I tore free, sprinting for the door, but it opened back into the waiting room. Clara stood there, unchanged, her head tilted. "You always run," she said, "and you always come back." The lights went out, and in the darkness, I heard her voice, closer now, inside my skull. "Sit down, James. We're not finished."